welcome. Who gets sick on 6 donuts eaten in 7 minutes and then spends the rest of the week on toilet, but still managed to show up for post-game and pre-game reactions, and then on Thursday nights. It's us. It's the lads from ASTV, the Thursday night podcast from our American Scouser, the brave ones, as they may call us in the Hollywood movie they eventually make of this shenanigans. We're joined as always by Trevor and Brian. Trevor, how are you?
Doing all right, given the circumstances.
Given the circumstances, Brian, how are you?
Doing great. Yep, no issues.
And the circumstances we're talking about as we go through the program for tonight, we'll talk about Mo Salah and his injury in the African Cup of Nations against Ghana. We'll talk about Henderson going to Ajax and maybe a little bit about Gerrard signing that contract extension in Saudi Arabia. We'll talk about the Bournemouth game coming up in the weekend, and then the threshold question, if you have time for that kind of nonsense at the end. But the first thing is obviously the most important thing, Brian and Trevor. It's the nightmare scenario we didn't want. Well, nobody ever wants a nightmare scenario, to be fair, but Mo Salah going down injured in the game against Ghana in the African Cup of Nations. Probably one of the reasons why we would prefer the African Cup of Nations not to be in the middle of all of our European seasons, but nevertheless it is. Update-wise, I don't think I've heard anything about the severity of the injury, but Trevor, does it look good, or is it maybe a precautionary thing for them?
I'm hoping it's something that they are just trying to be a bit trepidatious, because with Egypt teetering in the middle of their group, they're trying to kind of give themselves a chance to advance in that last game. From everything I've seen and a lot of people saying that it was just the look on his face where he was very sad. And whenever I hear that the player knows that there's something wrong, I'm not a big fan of that. I'm just hoping that he may have felt something off, but it's not as bad as he thinks it is. That's all I can go on right now, because if it is something where he's out for a couple months, this is not going to be a fun experience down this stretch.
Brian, I mean, that is a valid point that Trevor makes about players like kind of knowing when something's not right, but at the same time, players can and do sometimes become almost hypochondriacs about things. Is it possible that Salah is maybe thinking about, it might be an injury that keeps him just out of that final important game, and maybe that's what he's upset about, but the actual injury itself is not something that will affect Liverpool going down the line? Or is it genuinely he knows his own body at this point and knows that maybe his season might even be over in the worst case scenario?
Yeah, when I saw his facial expressions and then him actually calling for it to get subbed out, it kind of gave me that little bit of reminder of Kiev right there, of how his face looked. I'm hoping for the best, but I'm also bracing that this could be a couple weeks out. I mean, he definitely came there and knows his body from his age and how many years he's played. So I'm hoping it's a precautionary thing, or it's a minor tweak right there. But I just kind of got a gut feeling that this may be maybe at least a couple weeks out, and especially when we're coming into that February, early March right there, where it's going to be pretty vital to have every asset we have. I mean, I just don't want it to be a gut punch to us right there, but it's part of the game right there. I mean, African nations right there. Unfortunately, it's in the middle of a season. What can you do? I mean, it's kind of is what it is. I mean, we just have to go out there and rely on the fit, healthy players that we have.
Trevor, there's never a good time to get somebody like Salah injured, but if we were to expect Egypt to go as far into the competition as possible, possibly even to the final, now is probably about the right time to get a minor tweak that keeps him out for the rest of the tournament, it would almost possibly benefit us, wouldn't it, if that was the case?
Yeah, if there was ever a time to fortuitously get hurt, it now would be that time. But I just and that yeah, he walked off the field under his own power, but I'm just going from that initial reaction of just him kind of being really just I don't he wasn't in like full on tears, but you could just see the sadness of this. This isn't, oh God, I've pulled something and I know I can't go. That just and that Brian brought up like Kiev, like, yeah, when he got his like shoulder messed up, he knew that he couldn't go on. And then no matter how much the physio tried to do whatever, there was no chance of him staying in that game against Real Madrid. And now I hope it's not something where the Egypt Federation will push him and be like, hey, we really need these points in this next game to secure advancement. Even if you can go out there and give us like a Willis Reed-esque 30 minutes, can you go? And then it just makes things worse. I just kind of want to see things unfold over the next few days and just, yeah, really, really just hope for the best and want Mo to take care of himself, but also Egypt's federation to save him from himself. If it's on that borderline where he thinks he can go, but there's kind of a chance of it getting worse if he even gives that half an hour.
I just want to say a big welcome to Amr Ali. I don't think we've had Amr Ali comment before. Well, that's at least a little bit of good news, Brian, if he was walking out of the stadium without limping. But in terms of his body language, is it also possible that we've seen it when he gets subbed off in tight games, the occasional time that happens, that it's almost like he is disappointed and upset and sad that he can't win the game for us. Is it possible that maybe that's what his thought was in a tight game against Ghana, that, him coming off the field means he's not there to help his team?
I mean, of course, it's a possibility right there. This is probably going to be his last, probably possibly his last AFCON that he's going to do, and I think maybe he wants to go out there and go out and win this one for Egypt. I mean, so of course, I mean, we all, you have to know what Mo thinks right there. I just know by that initial reaction of how he acted right there. Yeah, he walked in his own power right there, but even with a minor hamstring tweak, you probably can walk under your own power and be a little bit okay. But it's going to take some time right there to get him in an ice bath, see exactly what's going on with him, get a scan, and then figure out where we go from here.
It's like Brian's connection got an injury as well. Let's just go to Trevor there just until we get Brian back. What does it mean for Liverpool if Salah is out for any length of time? Do we have enough resources up front to be able to handle that absence?
I think it's going to be a lot more Jota and a lot more conversations about Darwin on the American Scouser network for where he's going to be deployed throughout this time if Mo is out for a significant period of time. And even though I don't think we initially thought there was going to be lots of additions in January, if Mo is out for a significant period of time, you got to go get somebody. You got to go get a body just for to take up a space on the substitutes bench that you're going to lose with Jota starting or Gakpo starting. You have to kind of, unless you think like a kid like Ben Doak is ready now to take that role, which I'm not seeing that they've given him that many opportunities, even with the Europa League and the League Cup and stuff. Yeah, he had a couple. He had like one start earlier in the year, and then he had one start in. Oh, Doak is out for the season. So throw that out the window. Done with that. Rewind. Go get somebody then. I don't know at this point. But yeah, I genuinely, because we've already seen that Harvey as a right wing is not something that has any sort of sustainability. Then I think at this point you're rolling with Gakpo outright, and maybe you go Darwin out left, or you flip Diaz to the right, and you have Joe. You're basically just going to be playing forward roulette at this point if Mo is out for a significant period of time.
Talking about miraculous recoveries from injury, Brian's back, and let's hope that's as swift as it is for Mo Salah.
Hey, it would be Thursday without some kind of technical difficulties.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, Brian, now that we have you back, for Liverpool, is this maybe the shape of things to come from Mo Salah? I mean, obviously, we would like to get every ounce of talent and ability and goal scoring out of him before he eventually does leave. But is this going to be, given his age, an increasing occurrence with him in terms of the frequency that as he gets older, because he's a fast twitch muscle fiber player, he's all about speed as well as skill, that he may be starting to get more and more niggly injuries as the seasons wear on?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, at 31 to be 32. I mean, you definitely think they have to go and rate that their injuries are a big possibility in the game. I mean, I would probably say right there that that we have to start thinking about it, and in the future about what we're going to do. I mean, it also is going to go about the player of how he feels or whether he can still go there and perform at this level. I mean, whether he's secretly wants to make that move to Saudi Arabia. I mean, or what he wants to do right there. But I mean, yeah, I mean, back of our head, we have to go there and think about who's the next person to go on that right side. I mean, and we're gonna have to think about hopefully, probably right now, sooner rather than later, right there, who we're gonna put there.
Trevor, what impact does an injury to Mo Salah like this have on the Liverpool team? We've been talked time and time again this season about the team being the mentality monsters. And they've come back from adversity. But part of that, or maybe even a large part, is because, at some point, if you get Salah the ball enough times, he's putting it in the back of the net. So there's always that kind of confidence that you can score. But without him there, and especially with our bête noire, as we would say if we were posh, Darwin Núñez up front, missing chance after chance sometimes. Will this have an impact if there's any long-term injury to Mo Salah on the morale of the squad?
I don't think it's going to just severely diminish the morale. I think this club is at a point where they can rally around each other and find ways to kind of cobble together goals in a potential Mo absence. But it is going to be something where there always is going to be that extra scrutiny from both pundits and from the internal staff of, all right, we've invested so much in making Mo a focal point of the offense. How can they adapt? How can they kind of change the system? All the while, people are sitting there going, "Oh, you guys can't do this. You can't do that. You're going to just be so stuck in your ways, and that you're going to continually try to just beat the same drum with different sticks, so to speak." And I want to think at this stage of the game that Klopp is a guy that will being able to like switch out like a midfielder or Kanate for Matip at the back, stuff like that, I don't think is a huge thing in terms of the general scheme of the team. But having to replace Mo Salah for any period of time, I would hope that Klopp would be a guy that could adapt what he wants to do to this new amalgamation of his team without his talisman. You just want to have that bit of faith that he would be able to kind of accentuate the positives of who he has left.
Brian, let's get away from what impact the injury would have on the Liverpool team. What impact would it have on the teams around us to know that Salah isn't there and isn't available? Will it encourage teams, especially when they have to play us, or will it still be, as has been the case this season, Liverpool will find a way, so they'll all think to themselves, it doesn't matter. It might be a little bit blunter, but it's still Liverpool, and they're still going to find a way.
I think maybe a mix of both. I think that City probably is pretty happy looking at that situation, being that they have a game in hand and they're only a couple points back. I mean, they're probably like, hey, this is great. I mean, that's as far as like goal production right there is with assists and goals. I mean, that's a pretty big major loss on our side. I mean, if he's out for an extended period of time. I think everybody else around us has their own problems, not to even worry really about us. I mean, at the moment right there, it's cities right there probably just sitting back and saying, hey, we can make a run on this now, like there just because of what we have. I mean, as far as Arsenal go, they have their own problems. I think that Villa right there is really playing way above what their level is at the moment. I think that again right there, City's probably pretty happy about it. But I think that we do have the resiliency right there to maneuver players around right there to impact the game. I mean, we're just going to take those other forwards that we have and try to figure out what piece where they fit in the puzzle. I mean, we have the goals in us right there. It's just actually going there and utilizing and not being wasteful with those with those goals.
In terms of the blend of players, now we talked about Suzy said Gravenberch might be a player to come off the bench. We talked about Harvey Elliott not being suited to that role, or at least it impacts everything else around him when he plays in that role, because we're used to certain things from Maul that he doesn't give us. We've talked about sometimes looking at, I think Tanuchin or Gali has a thing about Jabuzlai taking that space up. Is there a case to be made, Trevor, for switching formations maybe a little bit and maybe going for like a 4-3-1-2 with Nunes and Jota, say, up front, or Nunes and Diaz, or Jota and Diaz even? Should we have to cope with Salah's absence, or will Klopp stick with the 4-3-3 and with Gakpo there in the middle and maybe Diaz on the right, like we saw in the last game, I think, for a period in the second half?
I don't think as much as we want that break from the 4-3-3 in these sorts of situations, I just don't think it's happening. But you kind of want him to put guys in spots to succeed. So that means not using Harvey there, even though he's technically somebody that can play that role and is not super out of place with it. He's just not as effective as he could be, being a bit further back and having that more space to move on that side. Szoboszlai up there, I could kind of see it because he is a guy that can whip a ball in, and if he's getting more opportunities to do so, a bit more advanced, maybe it works. But I'd like to see it a couple times before I get really behind the idea. In my head right now, I think the ideal thing right there is moving Diaz to the right, probably running Nunez on the left, and Jota up the middle, just because that it's I think if you keep Nunez in the middle with making Diaz go away from his natural position, they're just going to fucking run into each other. So to have that buffer of Jota in between and kind of give them space on the outskirts, even though it's not their quote unquote natural positions, just kind of keep the two bulls from butting heads, I think is beneficial. But as Sergi says, Jota staying fit is huge for that to work, because if it gets to a point where he's not available, and then you have Gakpo in there who can kind of get in his own head sometimes, where he's trying to just find that perfect pass rather than just getting rid of the fucking ball sometimes. Having two guys that, one, get caught off sides a lot, and two, are very indecisive with the ball when they're trying to just cut in from angles, that's kind of a recipe for disaster in my mind.
Brian, Trevor talked about Salah being like he is the club and team talisman, but in terms of goal scoring, would it be fair to say that Jota is the next talisman in terms of that part, because he is an important goal scorer and a scorer of important goals? So as Sir Z says, as long as we can keep him fit, we can build something around him and then Gakpo and Nunez. But if Jota's not there, we're kind of left to the mercy of what mood Darwin Nunez is in each week, aren't we?
Oh, I think that Jota's our most natural goal scorer that we have on the side. I mean, I think even probably him and Mo are pretty close right there in comparison right there as far as sleekness and ability and actually cleverness. So I mean, we have to kind of keep like Sergi said, we have to keep Jota healthy. So I think that like I agree with what Trevor was saying right there by putting Nunez out on the left and Diaz on the right, and having Gapco go there and play most of the majority of the match, and having Jota come in for like the last 30. Until at least we get a good feel for what Jota is right there, and use him when we need to use him. Because again, right there, he's still coming off of this this injury. I don't want to go out there and stress him out right there to a point where he's not fit enough to keep on going. And I mean, Gally and Catherine said this right before he went through there, that during this time right there, that Jota will probably see the least amount of minutes, will probably score the most amount of goals. And I kind of agree totally with that. I think that that we have to keep him reserved. I mean, and off the bench as a more of an impact player than we can than doing that. And kind of like what we're going to have to do with Harvey. I mean, the same difference right there. Harvey to me is a right attacking midfielder who needs to come, who's more of an impact player right there than he is actually a right wing. I mean, so I think that's why Diaz goes there and actually being in that right side right there makes more sense in the big picture. Slobozai, I mean, people talk about him being up there. Like Trevor said, I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really say one way or another. I don't know whether Klopp had even fooled with that in preseason when he had him, and see whether that's something that he's able to play. I know in the Hungarian side he has played there before, some, but it's a whole different thing between international and club level, as we all know.
So let's end that section there by praying to all the gods we can think of, and then some we have to make up, including Yoda and possibly Darth Vader when he's in a good mood. That Salah comes back fairly healthy and maybe just a little bruised, if anything, in the old leg department. But we talked about Saudi Arabia, so let's stick on that theme, because this happened today. Jordan Henderson signs for Ajax Amsterdam, as they like to be known sometimes in my house. Trevor, this has been, as far as I can see, a professional and public relations disaster for young Jordan Henderson from the beginning. Is he looking for redemption? Is he looking for a payday again? Because apparently his pay was deferred at Saudi Arabian team whose name I can't pronounce. Or is he looking to try and get some exposure there in Europe, and then maybe one last hurrah in England, possibly with Sunderland or something? to repair his reputation, because at least as far as maybe we're concerned as Liverpool players, his reputation is in tatters, isn't it?
I don't fault him for wanting to get out of his contract and doing the things that he needed to do to get out of the Saudi league, with it being just the absolute calamity that it was. I don't really feel any sort of sympathy, though. I see a lot of people going, well, good on him for just doing whatever he could and not worrying about the money. I go, not worrying about the money. The money is the reason why he went there in the first place. So not worrying about the money, that's okay. That there has to be something in his contract where there's going to be something coming on the back end, because there's no matter whatever deferral or, oh, you had this clause where if you broke your contract, he's not going to have played for free. That's just not something that's going to happen. But I think going to Ajax is something where it's almost a bit of self-awareness, where he realizes where his level is now. And he knows that all these things are like, oh, he wants to come back to England. And then there was crickets, because nobody, if there was something, because we've seen when Christian Eriksen was trying to come back in after his scare at the World Cup, he did Brentford. And then there's guys, you see the Ross Barkleys of the world trying to rejuvenate their career at Luton and stuff like that. If there was a team down there that wanted that bit of leadership and then really just had that wherewithal, you tell me Burnley wouldn't bring in somebody like that if they really felt that he could help? There was nothing. So he has to go to the Dutch league. There was rumblings of like Portugal and stuff like that. He had to kind of just take this self-demotion, because that's where he is right now. He can't run. He got humbled with the fact that he went to be this ambassador in a league that was putting 400 people in the stands at all of his games, because they weren't. Al Ettifaq is not one of the 3 PIF owned teams. So I just, at this point, you've made your bed, lay in it. Hopefully for Ajax, they get something out of him. Yeah. But for me right now, as much as his last probably 5 years with the club were just beautiful, it's good riddance at this point.
Brian, for Jordan Henderson, we've seen with other players, let's say, just for example, Graham Souness, who made probably the biggest faux pas you could ever make when he was Liverpool manager by doing an interview with that paper, which will not be named on this show, after his heart operation, and so soon after Hillsborough. But it took probably a good 20 years or so before he started to become accepted again among the Liverpool fans. Always recognizing the great things he did as a player, because he was a fantastic player, if not one of the best midfielders we've ever had. But he definitely was one of the best midfielders we ever had. But his reputation was ruined by that one thing, because that was the one thing he didn't want to do at that point in time in Liverpool. Is there a redemption arc for Jordan Henderson, given, number one, that move was clearly about money to a great extent, and number two, Liverpool is one of the few clubs that I think can identify themselves as a very socially conscious club. Always a little bit on the left wing side to a lot on the left wing side, and the principles founded by Bill Shankly back in the 50s and 60s There is a certain element of Liverpool support that requires an awareness of social justice. And Henderson seemed to piss all over that when he went to Saudi Arabia, having previously given all his support to the LGBTQ community. Is there a redemption arc for him? And if so, is this the start of it, or is this just that I need to get out of there, move before he starts that part of the game plan?
I mean, I think there is a redemption somewhere out there. I think that that he has to probably be really humble to them at the moment to think about what he kind of threw away to go this move. I mean, he would have been his role would have been a little bit more diminished right there this season with us, But if we probably wouldn't even sign Gravenberch right there if Henderson was still here. I think that he would have still came through there. I mean, I don't know. I think that he as a player right there would have been beneficial with his leadership that we had, and he could have did that whole play one season, make it to make that glorious return to Sunderland, and go there and lead them up through there, your boyhood club and stuff like that. This would be hard. It's a hard route now that he took. I mean, he basically took he pissed off, like you said, he pissed off all the morals that he had already talked about, all the things that he stood up for, the rainbow laces and stuff like that. I mean, these are things right here that he championed. That by going to a country right there who that's considered a death penalty. I mean, and you played for that right there. I mean, it's a totally against every moral thing that you encompass that you actually had. I mean, I think going to Ajax, I mean, with the Dutch being a lot more open of a country than probably any European country out there, and definitely a lot more open than the United States. I mean, maybe this will be a time for him to go to redeem himself, and embrace the community, those communities, and say, hey, you know what, I made a mistake, do charity events, things like that. But I don't really think that we're going to really welcome Henderson really back in the fold until probably until he's gone and he plays for like the seniors. I mean, later on down his career, I think that kind of like in the same terms that Michael Owen, who kind of still isn't really on terms with many of us, that that he is at the moment. But I mean, everything's possible right there. I appreciate everything that Henderson did. He was probably definitely one of the better captains that that this club's ever had. I mean, and you have to appreciate what he gave us, but just to piss it all away to go to play for money, it's just so wrong. I mean, it's so against all the ethos that like you said of our club.
Trevor, I think it doesn't need to be repeated too many times. It's a known factor that he was kind of. I know people criticize Brendan Rodgers for maybe wanting to swap him for Clint Dempsey at one point when he first started at Liverpool. But at the time, I always thought we had Andy Carroll as a centre forward, and I would have much rather have had Clint Dempsey than Andy Carroll, number one. But number two, Henderson hadn't pulled up any trees under Kenny Dalglish. So it's not, there's a lot of hindsight in criticizing that move. However, he made himself into probably one of our most important, if not our most important leader. Won the Champions League with us, won the league with us as captain. We can see the qualities that he had right there in terms of soccer on the field. But I've also heard him talk on television. Is it possible that money wasn't really the factor and Jordan Henderson is just as thick as two sharp planks?
Yeah, when he first got here, he in my circles, he kind of earned the nickname Hender Sideways because you never kind of got what he was talking about, but all of his passes were also sideways. It was a very duality of a nickname. But I think I'm past the naivete that this wasn't money driven, and I think they just the players that went there, and you're seeing the same thing with Benzema. They thought they just saw the figures that were being thrown at them and thought they could do good enough that they could overlook all the rest of it. And there's a lot of guys that came in that kind of influx that are leaving because their wives can't go do anything. They they have issues with like Fabinho getting his pets verified till they get into the country and stuff like that. All of that weird saga. They're in these teams that they're not playing in front of big crowds, and when they are playing in front of decent crowds, it's a library. I think a lot of these guys, their egos took over and like, well, this kind of looks shit from the outside, but if I'm here and we got Cristiano and we're getting N'Golo Kante and we're getting all these guys that are going to come in and bring some star power to the league, that these big, just huge Saudi royals will, if they're not getting people from the country in there, they'll fly in people, and then you'll have all these celebrities and just foreign dignitaries in the stands, and not even that has happened. So I'm surprised it happened this quick, because it's well, it's birds of a similar feather. But in terms of back to Henderson, I think if he's going to get back in the good graces of people, which I think will forgive him over time, it's not something as egregious as the Graham Souness thing, because I think in the end this was very money driven, and I agree with the thickness part of it. It's kind of just that, well, I don't know why people would get upset at me for this, but okay, duh. That type of just mentality where you're not really thinking. I hope that it's not anything more sinister than that, and I've always kind of was hoping that it was just a money grab. Like when Koulibaly left, he goes, "Yeah, this is to make sure my great grandkids never have to work a day in their lives. I'm gonna play here for 2 years, and my great grandkids will never have to lift a finger ever, and then it's all gonna be good." I'm hoping he just had that same mindset, but then his family was just like, "We can't do this anymore," and then he goes, "Well, got to pull the plug on it."
Brian, just to kind of finalize this, when we talk about all those players heading to Saudi Arabia and then leaving, but one personality who isn't leaving is Steven Gerrard, who was apparently extended his contract. So at least one person seems to be happy with the arrangement. But that, yet again, that like the prodigal son, almost the one that people had earmarked to be a future Liverpool manager, by signing this extension and not joining that exodus, is Steven Gerrard further putting the nails in the coffin of his future Liverpool managerial career?
I'm like one of many who never wanted Gerrard to be the manager of Liverpool. I thought that I didn't think that he had that was the right spot for him. I still don't think that's the right spot for him. And honestly, right now with what he did, okay, so he won the league with Rangers. I mean, okay, sure, I mean, but you made a mess out of Aston Villa. I mean, that was a complete disaster. That took Emery 2 seasons to kind of get unraveled now. So I think that Gerard's in a place where he knows that he's going to get that. He's like that, like we talked about last week, that whole mess of former managers right there, former England players right there that became managers. He's one of them. I mean, that they're to play the game and to go and to actually manage the game, two different animals. Right? We saw that with Graham Souness, who you talked about earlier, with the mess that he made at Liverpool when he was the manager at Liverpool. So I mean, it goes hand in hand. I mean, I think that Sotis and Gerard are kind of like very similar type of personalities, a very similar type of people, and I think that neither one of them really are going to be effective managers in the long run.
So let's leave Saudi Arabia and get to something that will be good news for today, hopefully, at least, given all the bad news we've had. But we play these guys on the weekend, Bournemouth against Liverpool, back into the league run of things. And then the second leg of the semi-final after that next week, Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it's Tuesday. What more of a statement can we make, Trevor, coming up this Sunday than to beat Bournemouth away, get the 3 points, and solidify our position at the top?
Yeah, given everything that's happening right now and the seemingly the length of time since we've played a league game, I think anything less than 3 points this weekend is going to be an issue. Bournemouth is a team that is kind of not necessarily in a bad run of form, but they're up and down enough where they can be had. And this is a game where you gotta have either Nunez or Diaz. I think those are the two big guys. You either have to have Nunez or Diaz really just have a statement game against these guys. They're probably not going to pack it in. They're going to try to run with us, and knowing that we're a bit depleted, they may get the better of us on a couple of occasions. But I think it's something where, yeah, we got to go. We got to go for it. We can't be cautious in this one. And if we're not wanting to talk about Nunez's misses next week, that's I know we probably will, because that's just the nature of the beast at this stage of the game. But I want to just go there, be aggressive, and go get 3 points.
Brian, they're solidly mid-table, which is a fair position for them. But they've also conceded 35 goals, which is nearly as many as we've scored. If the African Cup of Nations and the Asian Cup hadn't been happening, we had Endo and we had Salah, this would be one of those games on paper that you know which way it's going to go, and you're only going to be surprised if there's a negative result. But with those two absentees, the continued, and I hate to say it because he's such a good player otherwise, but the continued underperformance of McAllister in the number 6 spot and the uncertainty of what's going to happen up front, do Bournemouth represent a banana skin this weekend?
I mean, it's everything's a possibility right there, but I do think that we're strong enough to go there to beat Bournemouth. Yeah, I've been concerned with McAllister sitting in there, and then we put Gravenberch back there, and it didn't work either. So I mean, it's like not having that number 6, not having a player that can actually play as a 6 is getting troublesome. I mean, we've tried Jones back there to but that's not his spot either. I think that that's kind of that weakness that we've that we're dealing with. Yeah, and especially without Trent. I mean, that's another thing you have to deal with. Not having Trent as your right, so it means you have to go and play with your position with spots there. I mean, I guess the big question is going to be see who do you put on the left and who do you put on the right. I mean, it's just not just even just McAllister. I mean, as the issue right there. I mean, you still have to look at all these other issues that to go off of. Who goes? What's our defense going to be like? I mean, do we play with Kanate and Burge? I mean, our Kwanzaa, because then you have to actually do and relax people right there for Wednesday. So I mean, so it's a juggle right now, and I think that they do have a potential banana skin, especially with Solanke's form. I mean, I mean, a guy that we can't sold right there on the cheap right there, is actually doing pretty well, and hopefully eventually he'll give us a profit off of it right there. But I think that we have to look at and see who goes what and where. I mean, especially in that midfield. I mean, I'm not sold on McAllister right there in that spot.
It looks from the lineup, potential lineups that for Bournemouth, Solanke might be injured. I don't know whether that's just a knock that he's back. But nevertheless, Trevor, this is not one of those games where when we get to our score predictions, we're going to be talking about 4-1s and 3-0s and 5-0s and 6-0s like I come up with. This is going to be probably a game, isn't it, do you think, where any win will do, and we don't care whether it's 1-0 and they have 90% of the ball, get the 3 points and get out of Dodge and then get ready for the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. It has the potential to not be a pretty one, doesn't it?
Yeah, and for all of the aggressiveness I was calling for earlier, I don't expect this to be a track meet. I by aggressiveness, I mean I want there just to be an impetus. I don't want them to be sitting back and trying to rely on the fact that the defense is probably the only part that is more than 50% healthy. Even without Trent, you got the center halves healthy enough, and you got Gomez, regardless of what people think of him and where he's going to be playing. You have that at least. And you always have Allison back there to kind of mop up a lot of messes. I'm begging for a 2-0 just so I don't have to sweat out the entire thing. But if this is a 1-0 and it's the one that comes late on, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. As much as my doctor would be upset that I'm not on the proper blood pressure medication for a game of that caliber.
Brian, is the saving grace for us that we can put together at least a decent central defensive and goalkeeper unit, and that might rescue us in terms of the attacks from Bournemouth, and then maybe the magic will happen. For maybe this will be the game that Darwin Núñez probably miskicks everything, but it all goes in. And then the shots that he tries that are perfectly timed go well over the bar, which is okay with me because they're usually from 40 yards out. It could be panic stations, as my little headline says, but this is such a calm team under pressure, isn't it? That we as long as we have certain elements on the field, we should be confident enough to get something out of this game, shouldn't we?
I think that we have more than enough to get something out of this match. You know, I talked about, you know, we were talking on the Monday podcast right there, you know, and I can't think that our front line is still strong enough right there to get goals in, especially with our defense right there. And I kind of made my prediction back then as for the team Tamusha special of 3-1, and I'm going to stick to that. I think that we have 3 goals in us. I mean, I do think that we're going to have like the classic goal that's going to piss us off like there that Trevor talks about so much. You know, I think that's going to happen. You know, I mean, that's kind of like our destiny right now in this with the side that we have. I mean, that we're going to leak something that's going to be like, what the hell is going on? But I do think that we have enough strength right there at that front right there to actually put something to put on a result. And I think that Núñez is going to actually score this weekend. I've got faith in him scoring right there. I mean, he's got close so many times, and I think that that this is the type of match right there that that rough and tumble match. I think that he can go there and get one in the back of the net.
Looks like I'm frozen.
Brian,
what did you do? What did you do to my connection?
Does this mean I have to go get frozen now too? I can just.
Hey, it's Thursday night.
It's Thursday night, and something I'm still frozen here for some reason. In terms of the the new manager for Bournemouth, he has like a 50% record, like 1-10, lost 9. Is this indicative that this game may be just an entire slog from start to finish? Trevor.
Yeah. I'm preparing for a very, not necessarily drab, but a very resultless affair. There's going to be a lot of smoke, not much fire, and I have no idea where if he's kind of in the ether at this point. We can't see the backstage, kind of peeling back the curtain a little bit. So we don't know if Macka is crashed out of it entirely, which would be unfortunate. But yeah, in terms of the Bournemouth, there's not much that I kind of fear from them putting together and all out. So hey, yeah. I think if we give up any goals to them, it's going to be no more than 1. If they get poetry but no motion, trot.
Yeah, I think that's probably the song for the weekend.
There you go. But yeah, I'm kind of sitting on the 1-0 fence right now.
Brian, do you think do you think we'd be surprised, or are we using the wisdom of crowds now in all kind of thinking it's not going to be the free scoring Brazil 1970 extravaganza we would like?
I don't think I think it's being gritty. I think I could see us being like 2-1 up until like about the 78th, 80th minute right there, and get that one goal right there. That would ease us up right there. But I think the whole affair is gonna be it's gonna be fairly even. I mean, they know that we're kind of hurt, and they're at mid-table side right there trying to punch above, and take a scalp. So I mean, so why not? I mean, they've got a pretty decent record against some of the bigger sides at the moment, so I mean, I would go there, go for it. But I think that, that it's going to be scrappy until like about the 70th, 80th minute right there. We're going to put that second goal in right there, get the 2-goal advantage in there. Then if it's going to be done.
So let's end the nonsense tonight, not with a technical mishap, but with the threshold question. So Trevor and Brian, here's the question. You inherit in a quantum leap style, you're Dr. Samuel Beckett, and you leap into 2 different ex-Liverpool players' bodies, returning to Anfield for the first time. Whose body would you rather leap into on that return? Fernando Torres coming back to play against Liverpool, or Jordan Henderson coming back to play against Liverpool for the first time? We'll go with you, Trevor, first.
All right. Well, the situation that you put it in that scenario, I'd probably come back as Henderson, because if it was like Fernando Torres today, I'd be super jacked and shit. So that would be a bit more of something like that. But back when he was just coming back with Chelsea, he was kind of at his lowest. So I wouldn't want to Scott Bakula that per chance, but I think Henderson at this point, he's going to be in Amsterdam, so I'd kind of be all probably zooted out, and my brain would kind of be blank. So it would, with what's been
so
going
much
on,
like Henderson normally then.
Yeah, but it's like thick squared. You get that extra layer of just absolute brain blankness. And with the way like the past 2 months have gone for me, I would take a pure period of brain blankness. That would do me a hell of a lot of fucking good.
Brian, which one would you like to Scott Bakula into?
I've already saw what happened to Torres when he came back in Chelsea, and that was pretty sad and terrible to see right there. Especially everybody saw when he came there, the Adidas commercial right there. Walking through Stanley Park, da 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 da. And now you see him coming back, and he's in a Chelsea blue, and it felt really bad. Henderson won everything for us. Even though what he did, it was not great right there as far as leaving the club, but you have to still say right there, his expectations for him right there, coming back as 30-some years old, playing for Ajax, playing for that right there. I think that it would be a much better presentation right there to come back right there as Torres on his first return back to Anfield right there, being in opposition. Because again, Ajax's opposition versus Chelsea at that point right there, a whole different animal right there. At that point right there, you were in the middle of the Mourinho versus Rafa thing and all that stuff like that. Yeah, I definitely would rather be Henderson.
I would leap into Fernando Torres as he returns to Liverpool with Chelsea that week, because I know Daniel Agger would be elbowing him in the face, and I would just stick the face out a little bit extra, so there was a little bit more damage done. That's how vindictive I am about the whole thing. Plus, he looks like Catherine Tate. So that's that. Let's hope and pray to whatever gods we pray to that Mohamed Salah is okay, and it's just a little niggle and a knock that will be repaired soon enough, and then he'll be the hero for Egypt, scoring the consolation goal as they get knocked out of the African Cup of Nations, and he gets to come back to Liverpool quicker, but without losing any face whatsoever. It just remains to say, number one, there's no Fantasy League show tonight after us. We are the deal for Thursday. Number two, it was great to see a comment there from Jamie, an old comrade from the Thursday Night podcast. And it's always great to get the comments. We love to see them. We love to respond to them when possible. And none of them should involve donuts, because that episode is well gone, thankfully. And so are the donuts. But we have our morning show tomorrow, sponsored by Reckless Coffee, Friday morning. And then we probably will have a pre and post game on the Sunday for the Bournemouth Liverpool game. And then next week, back to the usual cruise on the usual days and at the usual times. So it just remains to say thank you, Trevor, for your time tonight. And thank you, Brian, for your time tonight. And thank you to everybody out there who has watched us and commented on all the platforms that they should make sure they're liking and subscribing, and make sure they are smashing that button.
Like and subscribe. Smash that like button.
Bickler would say. Or gently tapping it if you're us, because we're the elder statesman of the entire thing. Brian's got injured. So we will see everybody next Thursday, and enjoy your weekend. Let's hope for the best for Mohamed Salah, and just in honor of him and in praise of all the injury gods, we are going to offer our hope and offer our our intentions by means of the 70s power music. Peace out.